All right, racing fans, buckle up. We're about to go deep, deep into the career of a driver who, well, you might not know as much about as some of those big F1 names. But trust me, this guy's story, it's wild. We're talking about Christian Fittipaldi.
Ah, yeah, Christian Fittipaldi. You mean like the other Fittipaldi?
Yeah, they're Fittipaldi, exactly. Not quite as famous as his uncle, the legendary Emerson, but man, just as interesting, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And for this deep dive, we've been digging into this fantastic interview he did on, the F1 Beyond the Grid podcast with Tom Clarkson.
Well, the great podcast.
Great podcast. And just to give you a taste, right, Christian almost won the Indy 500, walked away from a McLaren test driver role, and survived a spin so crazy you got to hear it to believe it.
Oh, what?
But before we get to all that, let's rewind a bit, set the scene.
Right.
Okay, imagine growing up in a family where dinner conversation isn't about, what's on TV, but about like engine tuning and tire strategies.
Wow.
That was Christian's life. He even describes it as like engine for breakfast, chassis for lunch, and tires for dinner.
I mean, it's in the blood, right? Like truly born into it.
Born into it. But we're not talking about just any racing family here. His uncle, Emerson Fittipaldi, two-time F1 world champion, an icon in Brazil. Like, we're talking Pele-level fame.
Huge.
Huge.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a lot of pressure, right, to live up to that name.
Oh, tons. But it goes beyond just driving. The family, they founded their own F1 team, Sugar.
Bold move.
Bold move. I mean, what's so special about Sugar?
Okay, so back then, picture this. Every single F1 team based in Europe, right?
Makes sense.
Sugar. They're operating out of Brazil. Can you imagine the logistics?
Oh, man.
Ordering parts, the travel. Christian even mentioned his dad, like ordering gear ratios from the UK via Telex.
No way. Via Telex.
Telex, different world.
Talk about an uphill battle, but Christian's early career shows he was up for the challenge, dominated karting, won the South American Formula 3 championship.
And then he jumps into the British Formula 3 championship, right? That's like F1's proving ground.
The big leagues.
And guess who his teammate is?
I don't know who.
Mika Häkkinen. Already showing signs of, well, the champion he'd become.
Wow, talk about a teammate. I mean, how did Christian stack up against a young Mika?
He more than held his own. But Christian talks about how Mika wasn't just fast. He had this, like, understanding of the whole racing process, Analyzing data, tweaking setups, a racing engineer in a driver's suit.
So 1992 rolls around, and Christian, he finally gets his shot in F1 with Minardi.
Minardi.
But we're not talking like the polished, corporate F1 we see today.
Oh, no. This was a time when, get this, there were like 30 cars on the grid.
30 cars. That's insane.
Total chaos.
Yeah.
And Minardi, they were like the definition of a family-run team. There's even a story about, get this, young Carlo Minardi's wife adding stripes to the car's livery, like hours before the reveal.
You're kidding me. It's amazing they even made it to the grid.
Right. But that underdog spirit, it shows in Christian's early performances. But there's a dark side to his rookie season, too. He has this horrific accident at Magny-Cours. Serious neck injuries.
Man, that's scary. Really makes you appreciate the safety advancements they've made, right?
For sure. And Christian admits, coming back too soon from that accident, maybe. The fear was there, affected his confidence. But then, at Suzuka, he pulls off this amazing drive, scores his first F1 points. And you could argue he saved the Minardi team financially.
Wait, hold on. Saving the team? How's that even possible?
So back then, right, Bernie, he basically gave teams this travel money if they finished in the points. For a small team like Minardi, that was everything, make or break.
Wow, so he's carrying the weight of the team on his shoulders?
Yeah. So 1993, new season, new car, and Christian's starting to find his rhythm.
They must have had a better car, right?
Well, it's a step up. They had a Cosworth engine, but the technology, it was a bit iffy back then. Christian even has this story about burning himself on the seat because the car was, like, bottoming out so badly in South Africa.
She burned himself.
Yeah, and he still finished fourth.
Wow. Talk about tough. But okay, let's talk about racing in Brazil. What's it like for Christian racing in front of his home crowd? I mean, especially after Senna, right?
Oh, man, the pressure. It's like you're a Fittipaldi, you're racing in Brazil, the fans are passionate, but the expectations, sky high. He's got the weight of, like, a nation on his shoulders.
I can't even imagine.
And then 1994.
1994.
The darkest year in F1, Imola. The deaths of Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna. It casts a shadow over everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Just devastating. And for Christian, I mean, being Brazilian, having to process all that while still racing.
He talks about it as the worst weekend of motor racing.
Ooh, yeah.
You know, the shock, the grief, it hit everyone hard. But in the midst of all that, he gets this, like, unexpected opportunity, an offer to become a test driver for McLaren.
Hold on, McLaren, the powerhouse team. I mean, that's got to be a dream come true.
You'd think, right?
Could he jump at it?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, because he actually turned it down.
He turned down McLaren.
Yeah, he felt like there were no guarantees of a race seat, you know, and he wanted to race consistently.
Wow. So stability over a potential shot at, like, a top team? That's a gutsy call.
And it makes you wonder, what if, right?
Right.
Because then, 1995, Mansell struggles in the McLaren, and guess who gets called up from test driver?
No way, Mika.
Mika, sliding doors moment, right?
It's big time. If Christian had taken that test driver role, who knows? Maybe he's the one battling Mika for championships.
It makes you think, huh? About how unpredictable F1 is, how one decision can change everything.
Okay, so we've covered the early years, the highs and lows of F1, and that tantalizing what if with McLaren. But Christian's story, it doesn't end there. Stick with us as we dive into his American adventures and get his take on, well, life after F1. And we're back. Now, before the break, we left off with Christian, you know, at a crossroads. He's just turned down that McLaren test driver role. You might think, okay, that's it for F1.
Right.
But hold on.
Yeah.
This is where things take a pretty unexpected turn. Instead of dwelling on, you know, what could have been, Christian sets his sights on
America.
America. What's so special about racing in America, you ask?
Yeah.
Well, it's INDYCAR country, home of the Indy 500. And guess what? Christian almost won it in his first attempt.
Wow. Rookie year, almost winning the Indy 500. That's a statement.
Big statement. He didn't just, like, dip his toes in the water. He went all in. Signed a multi-year deal with Newman Haas Racing.
One of the top teams.
One of the top teams. So one door closes, another one opens, right?
Yeah, for sure. But looking back, do you think he ever had those, like, second thoughts about turning down McLaren?
I mean, it's got to be in the back of his mind somewhere, right? Especially with, you know, what happened with Mika.
Yeah, but Christian, he seems like a pretty pragmatic guy. He doesn't really dwell on those what-ifs, you know?
Yeah.
He focuses on the path he chose, the success he found.
I like that. It's easy to get caught up in, like, you know, the coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes taking that, like, road less traveled, it has its own rewards.
Exactly. And for Christian, it meant becoming a champion in America.
Yeah.
Conquering different challenges, proving he could adapt, be successful anywhere.
Absolutely. Okay, but before we get too far into the American chapter, I got to ask about, well, the Monza spin, 1993.
Yes, the Fittipaldi flip. One for the history books, that one. Makes you wonder how he walked away from that, you know?
I've seen the footage. It's nuts. But for those who haven't, paint us a picture.
All right, so last lap of the Italian Grand Prix at Monza right now. Tension is high. Christian's battling for position with his Minardi teammate, Pierluigi Martini. They're approaching the finish line.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Christian's gaining on him, ready to make a move. But then, as he pulls alongside Martini, their wheels touch.
Uh-oh.
And boom, Christian's car, it's launched into this crazy 360-degree spin, 200 miles per hour, easy. The car is literally flipping through the air.
You're kidding. 200 miles an hour?
At least. It's like something out of a movie, you know? You're just waiting for the explosion.
So how does he survive that?
Combination of luck, strong safety measures. Somehow the car lands back on its wheels, crosses the finish line.
What?
And Christy car. He gets out totally unscathed.
It's a miracle. It's a testament to how far F1 safety has come, you know, but also a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong.
Oh, yeah, big time. That danger, it's always lurking.
Okay, well, let's take a breath for a second, come down from the adrenaline rush of that Monza spin. We've talked about the highs and lows of F1, but I'm curious about, you know, his experience in America, the racing scene over there. It's a whole different world, right?
Absolutely. That's a whole other chapter in his story. We'll get into that, his thoughts on that Miss McLaren opportunity, what he's up to now when we come back.
All right, welcome back. So we've talked about, you know, Brazil, Europe, F1, INDYCAR, even a little bit of downhill mountain biking with Christian Fittipaldi.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I think what I find so interesting about his story is how he was able to adapt, you know, overcome challenges and ultimately find success, but on his own terms.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's something that might surprise you. When he's asked about his idols, you know, you'd expect him to mention some racing legend, right?
Right, Senna or someone like that.
Exactly. But he doesn't.
He doesn't. Who does he say?
He says, and I quote, "My dad is my dad, 10 times bigger than an idol, 1,000 times bigger than an idol." Pretty powerful stuff.
Wow. That says it all, doesn't it?
It does. It reminds us that sometimes our heroes, You know, they're not the ones in the spotlight. They're the people closest to us, the ones who shape who we are.
Yeah, for sure. So when Christian looks back on his F1 career, I mean, how does he feel about it all?
He's pretty honest. He admits, you know, maybe he gave up on his F1 dream too soon. I think we've all felt that way about something, right? That what-if feeling.
Oh, yeah. But you got to remember, F1 was different back then. Getting a seat, a competitive one, it was really tough.
Especially for a driver coming from a smaller team.
Exactly.
And yeah, he got that offer from McLaren, the test driver role, but ultimately decided it wasn't the right move for him. He wanted to race.
And that led him to America, to INDYCAR, where he had all that success. It's like sometimes, taking a step back from what you think you want, it can actually lead you to something even better.
Yeah, it's about finding the right path.
The right path, exactly.
Even though he might have some regrets about how F1 ended, he really made the most of every opportunity he had. He never let setbacks, define him. He just kept pushing forward.
That's resilience, right? He's got that in spades, whether he's on the track or, on a mountain bike.
Speaking of mountain biking, I mean, for a guy who spent years, risking his neck in F1, you'd think he'd choose a slightly safer hobby.
Right. But he loves that adrenaline, that pushing the limits, even if it means a few broken bones along the way.
Yeah.
Remember, he broke 5 ribs, punctured a lung, mountain biking.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
He's a bit fearless, I guess you could say.
Yeah, for sure. It's inspiring, though, right? Never too late to pursue your passions, whatever they may be.
Absolutely. And actually, Christian, he's still very connected to motorsport, even after retiring from driving. He co-hosts this podcast, Pelos and Pistas, with his buddy Nelsinho Piquet.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. They talk about everything, right? F1, INDYCAR.
Yep. They're not afraid to speak their minds either. It's a good listen.
It's great that he's still involved in the sport, Sharing his knowledge, giving back.
Definitely. Okay, ready for the big question.
Hit me.
Movie about Christian Fittipaldi, who plays him.
All right, drum roll. And the answer is?
Well, he doesn't actually give a specific name. He's like, send me your suggestions on a postcard.
He's got a sense of humor about it.
Oh, yeah. But he does mention a driver he admired, Carlos Reutemann.
Ah, the Argentinian legend. Interesting. Can you see the resemblance?
Yeah, kind of, right?
Oh.
They both had that, quiet intensity, that determination, and both had those careers where you kind of wonder, what is? What could have been?
It's true. It makes you think, about what we look for in our heroes. Is it talent, determination, a little bit of mystery, maybe?
Maybe it's all of that, right? But maybe it's also about overcoming adversity, adapting to change, and never losing sight of what's important.
And I think that's the core of Christian Fittipaldi's story. He shows us that life is full of surprises, ups and downs, unexpected turns. But it's how we handle those challenges that really defines us.
Well said. It's been a pleasure diving into his world. Hopefully it's inspired you all to pursue your passions, never give up on your dreams. And remember, sometimes the biggest victories are the ones we win, within ourselves.
And that is a wrap, folks. Our deep dive into the life and career of Christian Fittipaldi. From the pressure of F1 to the triumphs in America and his enduring love of racing.
And if you want to hear more from Christian himself, definitely check out that full interview on the F1 Beyond the Grid podcast. Lots of great stories we didn't have time for.
That's right. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop pushing your limits.